All right, everyone. It is time. 3.4.1 has came out. We knew this was coming out. That was mentioned as far as 3.4.0. This is a smaller update than 3.4, which was frankly a pretty massive update. And let's just look and see what's going on here. This happened a few days ago. I've taken the weekend just to sort of review everything. Just some covering updates here where he mentioned that a lot of this is some small updates and bug fixes. We won't go into too much of that. They've been listening to some feedback from the community that helped us with the updates, so it includes some adjustments and clarifications. And I think that's really great. I've looked at some of these updates beforehand, and I like a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of the updates I think are really good. So I think it's always good to say here that this is where they're saying here this marks the beginning of the yearly update. So I know this is another update, but I do think, especially seeing some of these changes in 3.4.1, I think that all of these updates, in addition to just the typos, a lot of really good updates, and we'll just get into them. This isn't going to be as long. But yeah, so again, I think this is supposed to be the stable version. They do mention that they're planning on updating the armies for the next 3 to 6 months, adding units and fixing mistakes. So I think for the next year, it sounds like they're even said you can even printing out physical rulebooks, possible translation. So I think this is a good system. They do mention, I think they mentioned that, so they're going to be tweaking the armies apparently, fixing mistakes, and I think they said they want to stick to it, but if it turns out that this is damaging to the game, they may come up with a new plan. So I think that's a good way to do it, to say, hey, this apparently is going to be the stable update for another year. From what I have seen in 3.4 and with 3.4.1, it looks like a pretty good update. But I think as well, I mean, where I haven't tested anything, and I've done some 3.4 testing, both I posted some on my channel as well as just some as well, and it's funny that I think some of the issues that were brought up I think have been addressed. There may be some few other ones, but yeah, I do have to say that I think 3.4.1 feels pretty good. So again, it's nice to hear at the end of the day to have great games. So they may do a post patch, but so we'll just sort of see. But the plan is for right now to not have any more major patches. So let's just look at them again. I'm not going to go into all the bugs and the typos, missing rules. I think that we saw a few of those in 3.4. There were just some things that needed to be reworded, and that just happens. I mean, 3.4 was a huge update. Split pick one special rules to make them clearer. So this is a thing. It's minor, but I think it matters. So Damon's up to half rounding up. So this used to mean that if you brought a single model, for instance, like Havoc Brothers, that just had Damon on there, you actually couldn't use the ability. I actually think this is a good change. It's minor, but I think it's a big deal for... You can actually now bring one model with Damon and actually use their ability, whereas it used to be... if you brought two models, you'd have to bring a minimum of two to get one of them to use it. So I do like this change to Damon's. I think this is a good change. Yeah, it's a small change, but that's actually going to be a big deal for Havoc and Damon players to now get rounding up instead of just rounding down. I'm not going to go too much into the individual armies. I don't care for veteran assault brothers, but the fact that they can now actually bring dual energy claws, I think is good. Maybe bring them. I don't think these are great units, but I think giving them dual energy claws option, especially the gravity pistols are okay, but I think the dual energy claws is probably if you're actually gonna run this squad, you run them with dual energy claws. HDF combat bikes and lightwalkers can't take heavy armor anymore. I think that was the protected ability. It's fine. I didn't see a problem with that, but okay. Armored trucks can now take pintle-mounted machine guns instead of storm rifles. I think that's fine. Tactical walker ranged weapons now have more. This is really good, actually. So I did notate this in my last one. I think the tactical walker was was hitting it below its wound value. So I think now they have actually given this thing a little more attacks, and I think that's great. I think that we should try on some of these walkers, really try to get their attacks up. They've reworked the melee weapons for Beast Riders. I'm not going to. You can go check it out. They've actually done this several times. We'll get into that into a later video when I start reviewing some of this stuff. Beast Riders and Boss Riders don't have shooting. Oh yeah, so this is actually minor, but it's some pretty good changes, and that is based on the calculator and how it worked, there were some units like the Orc Walkers which were getting shooty for free. So it's really good that they've split up this into a melee and range to avoid the exploits. Basically, Orc Walkers had shooty, and they were basically getting it for free because they didn't start off with any shooting weapons, and that's not how it's calculated. So I do like they've split this up. This is actually a small thing, but I think it's very good that now Orc Walkers just don't get free shooty. Smasher Cannons, AP2, and I said they're updating, especially the regular Smasher Cannons. Yep, I think it's fine. Veteran Prime Brothers now take heavy flamers and weapon mods. I think it's fine. I, again, don't care for the veteran versions of the Prime version, and I don't know, especially with heavy flamers having reliable, I don't know why you'd bring the veterans of them. I guess it's because you get the 3-man squads. Anyway, it's okay. I won't get too much into this one here. We'll keep this video a little short. They did update something in the guilds. This is their skirmish versions. All right, so core rules. So, again, they had some fixing typos and a lot of small clarifications. That's very good. Clarified that fatigue applies to the whole unit. I think it's some of this stuff is just minor. Clarified that you don't need to be a caster to give the -1 to the roll, and also you can just target the unit instead of just the caster. Flying. So these are just more minor things anywhere within their position. This is actually a big change here. So previously, the change for ambush was you just had to be 6 inches away from a table. That really wasn't that good. I would say this. I don't love this rule where you get to set up behind your enemy in a regimental game. I don't like it. But if you are going to play it that way, I think at least they nerfed it a little more where now you have to be 6 inches away from an enemy unit. That's actually really important because it actually means you can now cordon off a part of the board where your opponent can't literally come behind you. Maybe behind you, but towards the side of you. So actually, the fact that you can now have some units in the back of the field stopping ambushers from appearing behind them is actually really good. It's a minor change, but I don't love ambushing in a regimental game, but I think this is now playable. So I do like this change. I will go into beginner's guide. This is sort of clarifications. We're basically saying that like units are also count as sight blockers. So all this stuff is fine. Let's get into the advanced rules. A lot of this changes were the advanced rules. So it is the advanced rules. I can't show you everything, but I can say that a lot of this 3.4.1 changed some of the advanced rules. Typos were fixed. Army terrain, Frick, Peely, and Sept. Like, this was a really important thing that they changed, and I'm glad. This is a minor thing, but it's a big deal that you get to pick the terrain now. Rolling randomly was just and added an extra roll and really hurt the game strategically. So I really like that army terrain is now just picked freely. That's very good. They clarified how progressive scoring and side missions work. We'll get into it. It's just more clarifications. Clarified last stand. Again, I'm not going to go too much into the clarification. So here, they did change how the boosted version of... So Focus Fire, this is in the advanced factions, gave you +1 to hit if you did a hold action within 12. By the way, I really do like the advanced actions. I think actions like Focus Fire and Overwatch actually... they really help shooting armies in OPR. That I played a game with advanced actions and I really like them. So they've just changed the focus fire now to be +2 to hit instead of increasing the range. Same thing with heavy charges, which is the 3 to 6 inches. Both of these I think are good changes. I like this better. I think it keeps within the Focus fire should really be about within 12 inches. Same thing with heavy charges. So I like that they really just made it more powerful, the +2 to hit. Now it really makes shooting armies and using this actually be pretty powerful. So yeah, I like the change. Clarified how casters pick their random spells. This is fine, and giving it the 6-up. Well, I think this is another big change here. Is reworked magic pools to be simpler and provide more dice. So this is something I did. We played, and I think some of the community, including myself, provided some feedback that the alternative caster system was really cool, but it wasn't giving us much dice. So now, instead of like D3 plus 3 caster tokens, now you actually get 2 times. So if you have a total caster of 6, you get 12 tokens, and then you roll dice. Ones and sixes are going to add and subtract. And you can look at the effect. I would just say this: the alternative casting rules look a lot better now that they've just bumped up. I would say this: you can look at the rules, but let's just say that the alternative casting rules now I think are really a lot better because they've just upped the dice. So I think this is actually a really great change. A living spell is going to be picked rarely. This is very good. I don't like random spells. I always like them picking freely. It's great. It's a minor thing with Vortex. Randomized magic items now have you pick between 2 random. That's really good. A lot of these changes you're going to notice they're moving away from either randomization or making things less random. And I'm all about that. I really don't like pure randomization. So I do like that you get a chance now to pick between 2 items. I think that's a lot better. So they did rework some magic items, and some of these magic items were sort of broken. The Silver Steel Shield was a 2-up against shooting, and Glittering Chainmail was a 2-up save against melee. So that was obviously ridiculously powerful. They've changed it, so now these are just def 2. And I think that's much better. I think that it's really good to see them actually bringing in some balance tweaks. Like, a silver steel, this shield and this chainmail, giving just a 2-up, basically invulnerable save was ridiculous. Now that they're def 2, I think these are a little more in line. The protective gem as well, and the opal amulet. One was a -1. So it used to be the protective gem was a -1 from shooting against all enemies for 1 turn, and the opal was against him. Now it's only 1 enemy, so they've actually nerfed these items as well. That's really good to see. It's basically good that they are actually doing some like I said, they're nerfing some of these a little crazier items. So really good to see that. Units are now frenzied on rolls of 1 and don't need them around. That's good. They changed frenzied. They lowered the amount of command points to get in growing and temporary move. That's really good. I think the command points were a little high. They also tweaked so Vanish. This is me. I did get a few days and look through some of the changes. And Vanish, so this is in the tactical doctrine. It used to be you could pay 2 command points that you could basically a unit with ambush, you could just basically remove them from play and have them appear somewhere else at the beginning of the turn. So that was actually just broken because they've changed it now so that you don't carry any objective markers. It used to be that Vanish, if you had like a carrying objective, it was just broken. So like I said, Vanish just got slightly nerfed that you can't steal objectives with this thing. So I think that's really great. Gambit powers. So this is in the twists and gambits, and they did nerf gambit powers a little more. Now you could just use it at the beginning of a unit's activation. Now it's at the beginning of the round. So I think the gambit powers are now got nerfed, and they actually buffed the victory points on them to 4. So, like I said, it's a lot more of an incentive to use your gambit for victory scoring points than for using their abilities. Although I think that gambits are great. Like I said, I like that they have done a little bit of nerfing there. Siege towers can now shoot out of them and charge at besieged buildings. I think that's just more of a clarification. I know that when I looked at the rules, I didn't even realize that for me, I thought it was self-explanatory, but to me, that's more of a clarification. They've added new rules for massive battles as well. This is for Age of Fantasy regiments, and we'll get into those later. I do want to talk a little bit about regiments in general, and I'll cover massive bowers later. But I do like it. I do like the change to massive battles, and we'll get into that later. All right, so expansions. Tournament sideboards now require the main list of at least 70 points instead of at most. So again, very good that they're tightening up those sideboards. I don't care for sideboard rules, but I do like them to tighten it up to 70 points as opposed to just, the most. So I think this is good. Age of Fantasy Quest. Now, I tell you, I'm not an Age of Fantasy Quest player, but heroes now must be within 6 inches of the same corner at the end of the mission. Whenever a hero fails to cast the spell, it now suffers. If it casts, it may now suffer stress to cast it anyway. Okay, well, that's fair. Have been tweaked to be less melee oriented. I'm not I'm not an Age of Fantasy Quest player, so I don't know if these help or hurt. Yeah, so that is the 3.4.1. I'm going to be doing some specific things about Age of Fantasy regiments, and I'll save some of those changes for later. But I would say overall, I like 3.4.1. I think they did. They make a lot of clarifications, and I really did like that they did nerf some of their things in the advanced rules that I think needed nerfing. And I'm really looking forward to trying this caster rule system now. I'm the alternative caster system was something that I was most excited about. And then when I did play it, I did notice that we were a little starved for spell points. So I'm really looking forward to trying this. So yeah, let me know what you think about 3.4.1. It's not really a big change. I think all the changes, I think some of the biggest changes actually came to Age of Fantasy regiments. And we'll talk about that later. But for now, hey, thanks so much. You have a good one.